Welcome to the IP2 podcast. I'm Shea Ashby, and as always, I'm joined by Felix Chung. Today's going to be a bit of a lighter fare episode as we don't have much on the docket. Felix, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing quite well. I'm looking forward to just catching up with you after, I think it's 4 straight weeks of having guests on. How are you
Yep,
doing?
I'm doing well. A little tired today. We're spending a lot of time cleaning and getting ready for our family vacation coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, you're heading out to beautiful BC here, on the lake, if I'm correct, if I
Yeah,
remember.
we're heading out to southern BC out by Creston. It's about
Yep.
700 kilometers from where we are. It is beautiful there, but I am in a little doubt because of the fires that are happening all over British Columbia. I looked at the map to see where the fires were and if they were going to be affecting us, and they're not. But there is heavy smoke in and all around that area, so we'll see how that pans out, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Fingers crossed, that it doesn't impact you and you have a safe and relaxing vacation despite all that. Yeah, at this time we are very lucky. A lot of people across Canada are very impacted by wildfires. Not just the smoke, but at risk from the fires themselves. So always thinking about them, and
Yeah, I was talking to Isaiah because he's in Kelowna and he was going to work
Mm,
at the hospital. And just before his shift started, he was packing his car because he's going to have no notice if there's an evacuation
wow.
order for them. So hopefully, I haven't caught up with him today. That reminds me that I need to do that. And while I was talking to my wife about it too, she was out at the lake a couple of weeks ago and she didn't mention the smoke, but we were kind of talking about it today. It does feel very weird to be packing for a vacation and then basically driving into the danger zone. Like, it's really
Right.
weird.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, again, fingers crossed that it's all safe.
Yeah,
But yeah, just scary times out there for a lot of folks. But
absolutely.
yeah, tough to segue into talking about our card game from there. But
It is.
it has been, yeah, it has been again over 4 weeks since we've caught up, and I mean, you've been active. I'm looking at the leaderboard for XP in Canada. You have gone way up over me. You're number 17 in Canada. You must be of crushing some armories over the last few weeks.
So yeah, I've been doing about 3 a week, and then when my daughter left on her vacation and my wife went to the lake, I was just crushing out games. And I kind of noticed that the other day that I climbed a few spots, which I didn't think was gonna be a big thing. And then obviously we just finished ending skirmish season last week. There was about 3 weeks of skirmishes, and I attended 3 skirmishes, so one a
Yeah, and
week, I think.
you did quite well in all three, if I recall.
No, I did good in 2 of them. The
Yep.
last one that we did, not so well. So in the first week, we played at Shoebox, I believe,
Yep.
and 2 boys came down from Edmonton. Both Andrew and Ethan came down, and I made it all the way to the finals against Andrew in
Yep.
that week. And then I ended up losing to Andrew, as we always talk about.
After
He
you
is
beat me in the semifinals, yes.
Sure. Well, yeah, I beat you in the semifinals, yes.
Mhm.
And then I let us down by losing to him in his wicked chain deck. So you kind of covered off like the first week there, or skirmish, that you and I made finals in top 4. How did your day go if you recount it from now?
It's just fun to play Prism. Luminaris is busted. What can I say?
Yeah,
It's
it's
a,
a really really fun
it's a
weapon.
busted card.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I also played. We both played Prism in that first week, and
Yeah.
then in the second week, you were not at Ogre's skirmish.
Oh, I was there. I was just a
Okay,
corpse
sorry.
though.
Right.
I You'll remember because I played 2 games that I dropped.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you
I,
had to
I,
leave.
I
Because you were
yeah, I had to
tired.
leave and take a nap
Yeah.
because
Because
my
you were still on 3-hour time zone change time.
yeah, yeah,
That's right.
that's right.
Yeah. So I played Kano that day,
Yeah.
and I made top 8 in that, and then I got
Yep.
KO'd real hard in
Hmm.
the quarters there by Paul.
Paul's just evergreen. in our Blitz skirmishes.
Yep. Which he went on to the finals, so good for him.
Yeah,
That was really
yeah.
awesome to see Paul go that far.
Okay.
And then the last week of skirmish, I decided that I wanted to go to Lethbridge to go play more because I hadn't had enough.
Yep.
And I grabbed two people with me. Adrian and Thomas both came with me for the ride down. And I scrubbed out pretty hard that day. I didn't do very well, but Thomas did amazing, making it the farthest in any event that he has outside of a armory. So he was super stoked to make it to the finals in that, which was
Nice.
super awesome for him. And it was a lot of fun. Like I love road trips like that. We were just having a great time in the car on the way down and coming back. It was just, a real pleasure to hang out with Adrian and Thomas.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Well, skirmish season always feels like it flies by, and yeah, we're into a period of some bigger events coming up here. National season technically is going to kick off. And yeah, Vegas is coming up. Sadly, at it intersects with the time where you're having your family vacation, but
Yeah.
I am getting ready to go in, well, under a week here. And
Neat.
yeah, very very excited to be there judging all 3 days, and there'll be around 10 people from Calgary going.
Nice.
And yeah, just very
What?
perturbed to see that Prism is on the upswing though. We were watching the Battle Hardened stream from today,
Yeah.
Atlanta, and there's a Prism doing decently well. I'm a little bit concerned that I'll need to make some calls there now.
I don't. Yeah. We'll see. I think she's still kind of like suspected to be in the lower tier. I think she'll fit a certain meta.
Yeah.
And you've been playing Prism for a long time, so I don't think you have anything to be worried about. You're pretty savvy when it comes to the calls that are going to be made. I don't think there's going to be anything too wacky for you.
Yeah, fair
So,
enough.
when are you heading out for Vegas?
So I'll fly out on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
There's a judge conference on the Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday I'm working. Monday I will fly back. So I am taking 3 days off. It's my first vacation over a day that I'm taking this whole year
Okay. Wow.
from
Yeah.
work. So I'm pretty looking forward to that. But yeah, it'll be jam packed. Not a lot of extra time on either end.
Did you want to talk about the judge conference at all and why that's maybe special or important?
Yeah, for sure. So before most calling events set up, there is a judge conference. Typically for callings, it'll be on the Friday morning on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, but not always. So definitely check with each event.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of premier, like tier 4 events, the judge conference will be a bit bigger and it'll be on the day before. So it's always a great opportunity to meet a lot of members of the judge community in particular. And there's no requirement to be a judge really, to it's just open to anyone to attend, even if you're not a certified judge. But of course, check beforehand. And at these conferences, they'll have presentations from various people about different topics. I remember for the judge conference before Indianapolis, there were presentations on how to do an investigation, which is one I attended. There was one about common rules interactions in this meta, which is also another one that I attended. So a lot of different topics from very experienced presenters that are very very valuable, and I certainly encourage anyone that could be interested or have the opportunity to attend one of those conferences if your schedule allows.
Nice. Now, this one is also of import that you sort of let me know that you're also going to be speaking at this conference.
Yeah, so when I said that the presenters are highly qualified and respected, maybe that's maybe
Okay to
that's
talk
not
highly
true.
about yourself.
Maybe they're letting anyone present at this time, but yeah, I was fortunate enough to be selected, and definitely I do feel that one of my strengths would be speaking about judges' roles within a community and different ways judges can serve a community and the different tools by which we have at our disposal to do so, be it through the PPG, or through the Judge Code of Conduct, or any one of those other tools. Just because judges do have a elevated status within the community, we also
Hmm.
have the obligation to protect it in a way and to uphold its values.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a presentation that I'm working on. I may be burning the midnight oil on submitting the PowerPoint. So this is taking me back to being in university. So there, but yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to presenting that.
I do have one follow up question that I was kind of like thinking about
Yeah.
and wondering what prompted you to want to hold this conference, and further to that, I guess, why now or why not in the future?
A couple things. First of all, I do feel like I do have something interesting to share. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have this podcast, right? Like
Hmm.
if I and both of us, I'm sure if we felt like we had nothing to contribute, then we wouldn't be making this podcast. And similarly, I do feel like I have something to contribute when it comes to speaking to judges. A lot of judges, or a lot of people in general, just to broaden that out, don't understand the power that they can wield, being members of a community, being leaders in a community, and how much potential you have to do good. So yeah, just I do feel like it's a valuable topic. It's one that I haven't seen come up in other judge conferences so far, although I haven't been to too many. So it's something that I'm very comfortable speaking about. That's the reason. I also have the personality where if applications open, I don't have any issues with applying. The
Yeah.
worst that people can say is no.
Yeah.
But if they see some value, then I'm more than happy to.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll find a fair audience for it. Just even in our interviews, we hear that people are willing to learn and want to engage, and there's always something for somebody that people will learn, so no matter what. So I think you'll probably find a fair, good audience for that.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, honestly, one thing that I'm a little bit worried about is for Vegas coming up, and also Canadian Nationals, which is another 2 weeks after Vegas. We're gonna have to figure out how we record this podcast. I know we've talked about this a little bit offline, but
Yeah,
it's going to be a little bit crazy. It's going to be interesting what our podcasts are going to look like over the next
the next
month
couple of
with
weeks. Yeah,
yeah, all of these things going on. But
yeah. It's
I'm
mostly you.
certainly looking
I'll
forward
be in
to it.
my the comfort of my home or at a lake. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but we have a few ideas for next week. So I'm curious to see how they pan out, if that's what we end up doing. So our
This is
listener,
scary because this is the least pre-planned we have ever been.
yes,
Like normally we have interviews and things lined up in advance, but
scripts for days. Yeah,
yeah, it's going to be a little bit ad hoc here over the
I think it'll be
next few
fun.
weeks.
I'm excited for it. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah. So Vegas is coming up here. I'm going to be working with Fred on both days of the calling, which
Are you
is
sorry? Are you working on the same team as Fred, or just in
yeah.
as judges together in the
We
venue?
are working the same event on the same team,
Okay.
the end of round team, which will be a lot of fun. I get to do side events on Fridays, so hopefully I'll get to see a lot of our friends all having fun on side events, getting ready
Yep.
for the calling. So also really looking forward to that. And yeah, a lot of familiar faces that we've that we've talked to on this podcast will be there as well. There's going to be Ryan Wood, who we also interviewed,
Yep.
Klaus. Wow, so many people
That's
that
awesome. I
yeah,
wish I could join you for that. That sounds like a good time to be able to like physically meet the people that we spent a bunch of time with, and
yeah,
yeah, I'm jealous that I'm not going. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. Well, we're gonna have to wait for the next event we get to travel to. Um, I guess before we move on to news, I guess I'm going to be editing this episode. So normally you're the one that does that hard work.
Yep,
Uh, so this episode's going to feel a little bit different.
it's
I'm
okay.
tempted to just upload it raw, to be quite honest.
I don't think you want that. Not gonna lie.
Ugh,
Give it a
ugh.
listen first, and then see if you want to upload it raw. But
We'll
that
see.
takes twice as much time to do it that way. So
All
as far
right.
as news, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with bright lights?
Let's talk about bright lights. Wow. Did you have single class draftable set on your bingo card?
I did not have that on my bingo card. I've given it a little bit of thought too. I am not a mech player. I
Mhm.
am not interested in mech at all. But I am actually very intrigued to see how this set pans out for draft. This honestly feels or seems like it could be more exciting to me than Outsiders as a draft set
Yep.
because other than a card being bad, every card should be playable by anybody.
Yep.
So I feel like that's going to add a very intricate dynamic to the drafting process. And players are going to have to be more cognizant of what they're passing, as well as putting into their deck. Because something in a draft you might be able to wheel, you're like, yeah, this card's probably going to come back. Man, there's probably very little chance that that card in this upcoming set is going to come back to you. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by it. And I think for myself, I've dabbled with Dash here and there in Constructed. And there hasn't really ever been another playable mechanologist in CC. So
Whoa.
that in
Oh, yeah.
CC,
CC.
look, I'm
CC. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
throwing any shade at Data Doll here. Don't worry. Don't worry. But even if I'm not intrigued by the mechanologist class, I think it's perfectly fine to be able to say, I'm going to skip this set for constructed. I'm just going to engage with it in limited because we're going to
Mm-hmm.
start hitting this 4 sets per year cycle. And I think just for the sake of my wallet and the way that I spend over the course of a year for Fab, I
Yeah.
think it's a really healthy thing to be able to say this set may not be something that I need to go super hard in the paint for and buy 3 cases and really try to rip open as much as I can. I think it's perfectly fine to just say, I play Guardian and I know this is a set that I could skip, and I'm just going to focus on limited. I'm going to draft at my local armory for 3 months, once a week, and that's fine. If I open a cool Marvel, so be it.
Yeah.
For someone like myself, I don't try to go out of my way to collect every set's chase cards anymore. That's something that I dabbled with in the past, but
Yeah.
not anymore. And I think that will be quite healthy for me, and it'll just help me modulate my spending and just help me engage with things in a more sustainable way. So
Yeah.
I have absolutely no issues with that.
Yeah, I've kind of come to the same conclusion myself as well, actually, with Dust Till Dawn, that it's an unsustainable practice for me to try and keep up my collection for every single set. And like
Yeah.
you said, with this being a set that's maybe that someone's not as intrigued with, that they can take a break from it, it in a a lesser capacity than one might have. And I'm going to have to do that because even just physical space, trying to keep up with having a collection for every set, 4 sets a year, that's a lot. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you in that. And because for me too, even like every single set that's not a supplemental set, I've always found a hero or a class that I'm like super intrigued in. I'm like, okay, I'm switching to this. It's going to be my new main, and I've done it like every single set that's come out. And now that there's a mech only set, I'm kind of like, yep, you know what? This is actually the perfect opportunity to take a step back from obtaining the game in the capacity that I do. And I don't think I'll feel bad for it either. Like I feel like in the past I would have felt FOMO regarding like, oh, I'm not getting Prism cards or I'm not getting Riptide cards, whatever it is. And this one, I think this is the right time for me to assess that and step back.
Yeah, or maybe one of the new heroes completely sinks its teeth into you and it's
I don't.
back on the roller coaster for you.
Maybe I doubt it, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think I think one kind of funny thing is when the set was announced again, and I don't know why I do this, but scrolling down through comment sections and all that, there was a decent amount of internet negativity about this comment as well. And it's so funny because I think a lot of people have come around to it, similar to the way you and I have described it, but we were getting hit by a lot of complaints like, hey, this is coming way too soon. Like, LSS is becoming like Wizards. We're just going to get flooded with products now and they're
Right.
going to be after all our money. And then other people, or sometimes the same people, going, wow, my class is not getting supported. I'm not going to have the chance to spend money on
Yeah.
new cards for all of my decks. I'm like, people are complaining about having to spend too much money too often or not having the chance to. I don't know, man. It's
Yeah. You can't win.
you can't win. It's,
I I
yeah,
think it'll be, again, as we're talking about it, I think it'll be good because I actually really wasn't super stoked on 4 sets a year.
yeah,
My wallet was basically the one that's not super happy about it.
yeah,
And I was trying to figure out how I could sustain collecting 4 sets a year, and I can't, which is fine. But also the 3 sets a year, the way they were cycling core set, supplemental core set, that's good for that year. But when you get 2 supplementals in a single core set, it felt like a very long time for draft periods. And, it, I think it got kind of boring at the end of like Uprising. So I think this will keep it fresh on the 1 year um,
yep,
cycle. So yeah,
yep.
so I think that's good. And yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But so I'm more excited now that we're starting to see stuff like a single class set again, where I don't think I have to obtain everything. So we're gonna be okay there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just really excited because truly, when LSS says everything's on the table, we're going to continue to try experimenting with weird and wacky stuff, they mean it. This is pretty wacky, and I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, it's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
all for it. I love change.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on to our next piece of news here. This happened, I think, last week. Blitz. Blitz got updated, so the sideboarding changes are permanent,
Hmm.
except 40 card main boards are enforced now, so there's no boarding up. And drone is banned. So we got this wrong, Shay. We are on record saying that drone is not going to be a factor in Blitz, and it's time to pay the piper for both of us. How did we get this wrong?
I don't know, man. I thought we knew what we were talking about. I guess we're not mega high level pro players like we claim to be all the time. How could we get this
Oh,
wrong, Felix? I don't know.
Shay,
Um,
I sense you're not being very sincere in your apology here to
I'm
all of our
not.
listeners.
I never will be.
Oh
Nah.
no.
The changes are good, you know? I don't know how you feel about them, but I didn't like the sideboard to begin with. I thought Blitz was best at its 40 card, no change, made it the barrier of entry easy. Because one thing that I see a lot of new players not play CC for is because they're scared of the sideboard. And that's one of the common things that I've always heard people talk about. And so I felt like if they have this sideboard plan in the Blitz environment, that's going to deter people from maybe even picking up the game. I'm not sure how you feel about that.
I don't really buy that argument. Like what's forcing someone to sideboard? Like it's not optimal to not sideboard, but
Yep.
a new player is not going to play optimally potentially for until they learn how to. So what's the difference?
Yep, that's
Like
fair.
yeah, so someone can play CC without a sideboard, someone can play Blitz without a sideboard still, right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
just
And
don't
that's
get
why
that.
I think my opinion kind of changed
Yeah.
because people don't have to sideboard. And honestly, the sideboard limit of essentially 3 or 4 cards is not really that big of a stretch to
Yeah.
either have or not have. So I've come around. I like that they capped it at 40 cards, and I'm
Yep.
glad that we're keeping the 52 slots in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah. It's did you enjoy playing in the previous Blitz meta? You've played in 3 skirmishes, like you said. I barely played in 1.5, so I didn't mind the meta, but I only saw a very limited selection of decks. What did you think?
Um, like pre-skirmish, our local meta is just people playing whatever they want. We have a
Yep.
lot of people that just want to play
Yep.
a class or a hero because they're intrigued by it or they like the mechanics.
Yep.
So when it came down to skirmish season, people still did that for the most part. There was a couple of tryhards that came down from Edmonton that played their S tier heroes. They played them very well.
Yep.
Um, but outside of that, I don't think that our regional meta was super tryhardy in that regard. People just played what they wanted to play, and
Yep.
so for us, I thought it was a lot of fun. You didn't have 15 chains sitting down. We only had 1 or 2 chains, 1 or 2 fatigue IRAs,
Yep.
a couple of prison people, and it was never really more than 2 people on a single hero, and
Yep.
we had no less than like whatever 15 people at a skirmish. So there was always tons of variety.
Got it.
So I thought it was pretty healthy and pretty good. But I think that's just kind of way our regional meta has like sort of developed and been cultivated.
Got it. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to what this means for the format. Maybe some more longevity for deeply enfranchised players, but yeah, we'll see. And again, our sincere apologies for getting the drone ban wrong. It's
Yep, our bad.
our bad. Draft pod changes. So very interesting here. So there's always been disagreement or a philosophical discussion about what happens if 12 people show up to
Yeah,
your draft armory. Do you pair it 8 and 4 or 6 and 6? Um, 8 and 4, you can argue that you're giving 8 people the optimal experience and
yep,
4 people get the shaft. 6 and 6, you're saying that everyone gets a slightly suboptimal experience. So it's an interesting question.
yep,
But certainly with the latest draft pod changes, LSS has come out in favor of the 6 and 6 approach, whereas previously it has been 8 and 4. I guess any thoughts on that, Shay?
just I don't know, a couple, I guess. We've had lots of conversations about the draft pod sizes in the past, mostly surrounding pre-releases,
Yep.
because sometimes we'll get a weird number of people, and it gives you that 8 and 4 or whatever, and then the TO is trying to force pairs, and it's been a bone of contention. So, and I think most people didn't like that.
Right.
And something in a pre-release when there's prizing on the line, like greater than normal prizing, the draft pot of 4 has some people think have an advantage over the draft pot of 8, where you're
Right.
not challenged as for cards as against as many people. So I'm not a draft expert by any stretch, but I think the changes are good. I'm glad that they came out, and again, like in LSS fashion, they had a conversation, or at least they gave their thoughts as to why they started a certain way, and you hear why they started a certain way, and you're like, okay, yeah, I understand your reasoning. And then I also appreciate you coming out and saying, this is why we're changing and this is what we're going to try. And just because LSS changes something doesn't mean they're also not going to revert if it doesn't work. So nothing is ever permanent with LSS, and I appreciate that. Like you said earlier, they're always trying to change and do wacky stuff and try things.
Yeah, from my perspective, dealing with the weird draft potting rules has taught me a lot about gem. So
Yeah.
I've had to fix a lot of, or okay, I don't want to say fix. I've had to modify a lot of draft pods.
Mm-hmm.
helping out the TO here for our weekly armories. And that's something I'm comfortable saying now out loud. Maybe previously I wouldn't have wanted to put this out on public record that I manipulated Gem in such a manner.
Yeah.
But yeah, it taught me a lot about Gem, but certainly from just a public relations or player satisfaction point of view, imagine this is your one armory that you can go to in a week and you're looking forward to draft, and then you get stuck into a pot of 4 in your 12-person armory. That's
Yeah.
definitely not a situation that feels good. So I'm pretty happy with these changes as well. Okay. Last news. Battle Hardened Vancouver was announced along with a whole schwack of other Battle Hardens and other large events for Q4. So this is an incredibly exciting topic because Vancouver are neighbors, just one province over. And Vancouver is a 10-hour road trip or a very affordable flight for us. And the first premier level event, um, like a Battle Hardened, that has been hosted in our area. So pretty cool. I mean, is this something that you'd be able to go to, Shea, do you think?
I'm gonna try. I'm definitely gonna try for this one. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's very close. It's a premier level event in Canada that's definitely obtainable. So we're gonna try and make it happen. Whether it's through player capacity or judge capacity has yet to be seen. But I also think it'll draw a lot of people from Alberta as well. If we can send 10 people to Vegas, I think we can send more people to Vancouver.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we had maybe a bit of a rivalry, you could say, with BC
Yep.
way in the past when there just weren't a lot of pro quests
Mm-hmm.
and RTNs like for the first few, but ever since then I think both regions have had enough,
Yep.
them a little more than us, to be, not have to cross pollinate as much. So
Yep.
it's always fun to see the regions mix up. And man, BC has some really good players that I'd love to see how we measure up against.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I'm very curious to see. Kind of like we were talking about, like the Pro Quest and RTN season. Like even in the last one, we just had the one BC person, Jay, come by, and he didn't even really come by to play in our events specifically for whatever it was, the RTN season. He was already here on something else, and he just happened to join. So, like you kind of
Yep.
mentioned, they've slowly dwindled the amount of people that they're sending over to try and claim, PTIs and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes of Vancouver, and I'm curious to know how many people from like Ontario are going to fly out. Also, it is a bit of a flight, but again, you're not crossing a border, so it's a bit easier to go across.
3 hour time difference. It's a big flight, Toronto to Vancouver. Even,
Sure.
I heard Canada's a big country.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I listened to our old episodes and they do hold up quite well. If you have a long trip to
Sure.
any
Yeah.
of our more recent listeners, they hold up really well, even the first episode. And one of the topics we were talking about was there were very few West Coast or Western North America events announced at the time, because this was before Calling Vegas was announced and Battle Hardened Vancouver. So it just looked like there were all of these callings and Battle Hardens being held in the eastern part of the continent, and basically very little in the west. I think it was just Battle Hardened Salt Lake City announced, and that was it.
Hmm.
So since then, we've had Vegas. I think we've had Battle Hardened in LA, and now Battle Hardened in Vancouver, um, all announced. And after talking to Jared last week, this was all probably in the planning stages at the time, while everyone, or while some people were complaining and just having some issues with it. So I guess that stuff is just pretty interesting to hear how things pan out over time.
Yeah, I feel like this battle harden is also very important. I think we probably need a very good showing to show LSS that planning events in the western part of the continent is worth it. And it's
Yep.
worth supporting the community. And
Yep.
if we could get a good one out of LA, we can get another good one out of um, Vancouver. Then hopefully we find more. They don't always have to be in Canada. I mean, outside of Vancouver, there's not a whole lot of other choices. Um, but yeah, I hope that we can really show LSS that it's worth planning because, like you said, Jared kind of talked about it. And it's a long ways out to plan an event,
Yep.
and there's a lot of resources that go into it. So we need to kind of back it up and show that it was worth it.
Yeah. And I guess the last bit of news that I had pulled up here was also an interesting thing that came up during our podcast was Canadian distribution. It's just funny to see on the Flesh and Blood main page title article about Canadian distribution update.
Yeah.
But yeah, Travis was saying how previously there was only one distributor in Canada that carried the game, and it was not one of the bigger ones. Now apparently there's been an update and the game is a lot more accessible in Canada. So they have also addressed another concern that was brought up directly on our podcast, which is it's interesting. It's weird that it happened twice, right?
Are you insinuating that LSS is secretly listening to our podcast and taking what we say to heart and actually fixing the problems?
You know, that has to be the reasonable conclusion to draw from this whole thing.
Yeah. Since that update,
Oh
though, I've
man.
talked to a couple of store owners, and
Yep.
they have told me that they're willing to actually carry Fab in some capacity already with just that announcement alone, that they'll order a box or a case if somebody wants it because it's so much easier because they already have ties with that distributor,
Yeah.
and they just slap it on the order sheet and away they go. So this is going to be a really good thing for Canadian Fab, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's just yeah, exactly, and it's just like Travis mentioned during his interview as well, right? Like just that barrier to entry for a
Yep.
store,
Hmm.
having that distribution network in place is already there.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what comes of Canadian LGSs and Fab from this point on.
Yeah. Any other highlights from our recent 4 weeks of interviews you wanted to bring up before we delved into a random topic?
I man, there was so much to go over. Like 4 weeks of interviews was a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I could try and pick something from each one, but I really enjoyed the conversation with Chris. Being a family man myself, struck a chord. It was very easy to get into a conversation with him
Yep.
because of the family tie that we both had, and how to sort life out, and how to, how we might introduce games to our children, and what that looks like, and the support that we got from our wives and our hobbies and the things that we need in our life. So that was probably one of the um, I don't know, best conversations for me in the last couple of weeks. I don't know. What did you have?
Well, before we go on to that, I mean, for someone like myself, I mean, both you and Chris are a little bit further along in your lives than I am, so you're old. But
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
yeah,
I was waiting for that.
but it was just
Whippersnapper.
fascinating for me to just sit back and listen. And I felt like I was part of the audience for some parts of that interview in a good way, like just
Mhm.
listening, trying to absorb the lessons that you were sharing and picking up on the successes and the pitfalls. And yeah, I really appreciated that episode, and just how open and honest you and Chris were. So definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
um, for me, I mean, the only person that we haven't talked about is Klaus, and you know, just because his role is so specialized and so
Yeah.
cool with LSS, and I mean, I would just like to highlight him. He does work for or work with LSS, and he took time out of his day, despite having a crazy schedule and having to hop on a meeting right after talking to us,
Yeah.
just to share how things work behind the scenes. And just knowing that people like him are working behind the scenes to make sure that the infrastructure of the game is strong just fills me with a lot of confidence that the game is in good hands from all angles moving forward. And he was, yeah, just very honest about his own experiences, like what led him to become such a experienced judge with so much travel knowledge and experience travel, yeah, just going all around the world. Yeah, it was just a great interview.
Yeah, just listening to you talk about that, and even as I was kind of looking over at our minimal show notes here, looking at Travis's name and then Klaus and Jared, they all weirdly fill a similar role in that they all facilitate the game in some facet, but every single one of them is important to the growth and longevity and life of this game.
Yep.
So while they all touch on something totally different, they're very symbiotic, I guess,
Yep.
in the way that they are a part of Fab. And I didn't really kind of put that together until just now. And it's actually kind of really cool that people with
Yeah.
such diverse um, roles or backgrounds and how they interact with this game are so important to this and the community.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Okay. Well, let's move on to our random topic for the day. So let's talk about food.
I was
What's your
like,
favorite food, Shay?
I forgot what the random topic was for a second. Oh yeah,
Oh,
fat guy likes food.
yeah.
Man, I like all things, but we were kind of talking about what's our favorite restaurant. Um, Here in Calgary, we have an amazing restaurant called the Himalayan, and they
Yep.
serve Nepalese food.
Mm,
And it's close to like I guess Chinese um, flavors as well as Indian flavors, and
okay.
I can't really describe how they intertwine into dishes, but yeah, I think that Nepalese food is probably one of my favorite because of this restaurant in Calgary.
Okay. No, that's really interesting. The Himalayan. So
Yeah, the Himalayan.
definitely we'll need to check it out if you're
There is,
ever around.
so along with the restaurant, which you can't always ask for this, Sanjay, the owner, is probably the best person in the world. And it had been years since Yvonne and I went, and we just recently went back to the restaurant, and he did a double take. And once he looked at us, he recognizes right away. And I think
Mm,
part of my enjoyment for that restaurant is part of the owner, because he is something special as an owner of a restaurant. And one of the things that I really admire about what he does with his business, this is kind of a side tangent, that he actually shuts down his restaurant for somewhere from like 2 weeks to 4 weeks a year.
yep.
And they go home to go visit their family. They learn about more culinary um, adventures and experiences while they're there, and bring them back to their restaurant and try new things with their restaurant. So yeah,
No, that's
that's
incredible, and it shows, yeah, that the owner cares about his business and his employees, and also about continuous improvement.
mhm.
Like, yeah, just to be able to always go back and learn more lessons. That's a great thing. You're not just stagnant and just doing the same thing
No.
over and over and over again.
How about you, Felix? What's your favorite food?
So Calgary is an amazing city for food, in my opinion. I'm sure that there's a lot of other cities out there, but and maybe I'm biased. I have a home bias here,
Yeah.
but yeah, just a lot of different cuisines, a lot of different ethnic groups that you can get. But one thing that I'm continually impressed with in Calgary is the Vietnamese food. I don't think too many places in the world outside of Vietnam can compare to the quality or the quantity of different places to get something like pho, which is my favorite meal and a meal that I would probably have if I could, every meal
Hmm. Yeah.
for the rest of my life. Like, I wouldn't say that about too much, but yeah, I mean, I'm lucky I have the chance to travel to a lot of different places. And, you know, even going to some bigger places like Vancouver or Toronto, even, you know, I could be very impressed with the quality of their Chinese food or other regional specialties, but I'll find their Vietnamese food usually lacking compared to what we have
Hmm.
here.
Interesting.
So definitely you know, there's 12 different restaurants that I would happily go
Yeah.
to. Yeah, for a good bowl of
It
pho.
wasn't
Yeah.
something that I'd ever even thought about until we were kind of talking about it. And I think it was the Discord.
Yeah.
And even I've been living in my house for roughly 15 years, and we've had in our neighborhood, I think, 3 Vietnamese restaurants.
Yeah.
They've all been slightly different,
Yep.
but they've always been good.
Yeah.
And just down the street from my work, there's a couple of Vietnamese restaurants that I've gone to, and again, always good. And I've never really kind of pieced it together that I always enjoy the Vietnamese in the city, no matter where I go. And I never one restaurant never stands out as being below any other restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We have northern Vietnamese, we have southern, we have more fusion type restaurants as well. And the other funny thing about Vietnamese in Calgary is that this is not some new hipster thing. Like, not to disparage any of this, but there have been a lot of ramen places popping up lately, a lot of
Yeah,
udon places. Like, that's all great too. I love
yeah,
that kind of food, but a lot of the Vietnamese restaurants around here have been around, you know, for 20 plus years.
hmm,
You know, since I was very young, growing up here and still serving the same great food. So yeah, I would say my favorite food here and just in general is pho. I will my wife thinks I'm crazy. You know, it could be 35 degrees in Calgary, which is like 100
yeah.
degrees Fahrenheit, and I'll still just wolf down a extra large, extra hot.
You're
How special! I love it.
good with a hot bowl of soup. Yeah.
Yeah, have some hot tea as well. My parents always told me it's good to eat hot food when it's hot. It makes you sweat and cool you down. I don't know if that's true.
Okay. All right. Sweet.
Yeah. Do you have any meals that you've had traveling around that are particularly memorable?
Um, when we went to St. Lucia on our honeymoon, one of the restaurants that was in the Sandals Resort that we were at served
Yep.
French food.
Okay.
And I don't recall the particular dish, but I do recall the feeling of the food that we ate was like if we were allowed to go back every single night, we would go back to this restaurant
Right.
because the food was so good there. But you were only allowed to go to the fancy restaurant once while you were there.
That
So
sounds
unfortunately,
incredibly draconian.
yeah, it was. Um, we did have access to the other Sandals resorts, and we went to a different one for one day, and we checked out a restaurant there, and they had dolphin on their menu. Um,
That's
I'm not a
horrifying.
I'm not a seafood person, and then Yvonne was too scared to try it, so we never tried the dolphin. But it was, yeah, it was weird to see for us,
That
dolphin
is
on the menu.
deeply upsetting. I
Well, I would imagine. I mean, I'd like to think that there was a reason that it was okay to have dolphin on the menu. I'm not sure.
No, there's
So
no reason why that's okay.
why
That's
is it because dolphins are intelligent?
yes. Come on. Oh
How about
no.
you? Anything memorable from your travels?
All I can think about is dolphin now. Oh.
Yeah, you didn't see that one coming, did you?
No, I really didn't. You continue to surprise me. Yeah, I mean, I'm not terribly well traveled, I must say, when it comes to going outside of North America. Traveling is on my bucket list, but it's just not something
Hmm.
I I had the means to do earlier on, and now I don't have really the time to do
Yep.
now. But hope maybe with Flesh and Blood and other things, I'll have the chance to go to places like Europe or Asia. But man, even the place that I'm going now, through my work, you know, the Atlantic provinces of Canada, um, the seafood there is incredible. And I do really like seafood as well. Something like a lobster roll, or even just there is one place in downtown Moncton, close to where I stay, called Catch 22 Lobster Bar. They have just incredible lobster dinners and huge mussels, like
Hmm.
the size of, I don't know, like they have mussels like an inch, or some of them an inch and a half, like big from
Yeah.
PEI. Like that kind of stuff, to someone like me that grew up in a landlocked province on the prairies, like that's incredible. I love that, and it stands out as very different. So that's what I'm gonna say.
Nice. Yeah,
Seafood from Atlantic Canada.
I would love to try that. Like as a
Yeah,
non-seafood person, I would love to go to, I don't know, as close to the origin of the food as you can go and try it,
yeah.
because that's honestly where I think the best is, that you're going to try it. And if you find it there and you love it, then there's hope. And if you still don't like it, then I guess you don't like it, right?
Oh yeah. All right. Well, now I'm really hungry, so gonna have to
Could wait a few
go
hours.
out go out and grab a snack. But
Yeah.
any closing thoughts before we sign off for today?
No, I don't have anything. How about you?
No, not much. Just look forward to some chaos coming up, which is rare for the IP2 podcast. Well, we're going to go back on the rails shortly, but for now, Vegas coming up, Canadian Nationals
Yeah.
coming up after that, and we'll have some more great interviews after. And please look forward to what's coming up in the next couple weeks. It's surely going to be fun. Please check us out on YouTube at IP2 Podcast, on Twitter at IP2 Podcast, on Mastodon, IP2 Podcast, at wraith.social. Thank you.
Perfect. Have a safe
Yeah.
flight, my friend.